Good afternoon to all our listeners and viewers of the NDC Heartbeat podcast. We're happy to welcome all those who are listening on radio via WeFM. We've got Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio. We've got 100.5 FM out of Labbe in Grenville. We've got Right Along out of Brooklyn, New York. And of course, you have the NDC Facebook online platform and YouTube. So, welcome to another NDC episode for today's Sunday. It's a little bit gloomy outside, but that will clear up soon, so at least we can get on with the cricket, which is pretty exciting. Those of you who are planning to go down to the stadium today, don't miss this opportunity. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be chatting with the Honorable Corinne James. She is the MP for St. John, and she's the Minister responsible for climate resilience, the environment, and renewable energy. And we're also expecting Senator David Andrew later on in the program to give us a slight update on the recent events which took place out in Telescope. So that's your program for today, and we'll be back with you in just a moment with the Honorable Corinne James. So stay with us.
Summer is here, and so is the search for Grenada's next big talent. The Grenada Office of Creative Affairs presents Sing Grenada, a youth-powered program spotlighting the next generation of musical talent.
We're looking for young stars from every corner of the island. Whether you sing, play an instrument, or create beats, this is your moment.
Show Grenada and the world what you've got. Submit a 1-minute video to singgrenada@gmail.com or click the link in our bio to register. Please state your name, your age, what school you attend, and you must be 19 and under to apply.
Your voice, your sound, your story. This is Sing Grenada, where talent takes center stage.
Welcome back to all those of you who are tuned in to the NDC Heartbeat for today's Sunday. We have virtually the Honorable Corinne James. Welcome to the Heartbeat once again. It's a long time we haven't seen you, so we want to give you a special welcome to the Heartbeat on this Sunday afternoon.
Thank you so much, Brother Forrester, and good morning to everyone, or good afternoon to everyone who's viewing in. It's an honor to be here again.
Great, fantastic. And how is it out in St. John? Is it a little bit cloudy or is it bright and sunny?
The sun is showing its potential currently. Earlier on this morning, we had a few showers, but I'm happy that the day has bounced back and the sun is out now. So
Great.
It's just an ordinary mellow Sunday in St. John. Persons are just coming from church, persons are going to visit families, and so.
Great, fantastic. Well, you have been charged over the last 3 years with great responsibility. Minister responsible for climate resilience, the environment, renewable energy. How do you keep up with all of this?
I think, when Prime Minister initially told me of his plans to assign me to that portfolio, at first I was very scared because I knew the amount of work that is needed. I knew the amount of traveling, research, and foresight and commitment that is needed for such a portfolio, that speaks to whether or not we would have an environment that we can call home to take on to the next generation. And so over the years, I think I have, understood the assignment in terms of where young people is and should be now. Decisions can no longer be made for us, and to have an opportunity to be one of the youngest policymakers in a small island developing state and to actually actually contribute outside of a small island developing state at international conferences and on negotiating tables around the world, I think it placed an additional level of responsibility on me that I knew I had to fulfill. So for me, it was rough at the beginning, not having any formal training in that particular area, or not, being so immersed with what has been happening over the years. I've had to do a lot of work in terms of getting us to a standard and to upholding a standard that was already created by my predecessor. So it was rough, but as you can see, the results are showing itself now. We have got the opportunity to be a part of projects. We've also got the opportunity to get other countries to join on with us to get access to projects from the internationally recognized climate finance and funding agencies. So, it has really proved that the time spent learning, understanding, and actually advocating for state and for Grenada has really shown itself, and it's rewarding.
Great, fantastic. Well, you're on record of having, accomplished a number of things. The climate resilience efforts, the renewable energy promotion, environmental conservation, international cooperation, Green Climate Fund, United Nations funding. Share with us some of these challenges and how you were able to accomplish them.
Well, it's twofold, because when the Paris Agreement initially started and we signed on as a country to that many years ago, quite a lot of countries had given their commitment towards what the next 30 years, what the next 50 years would look like as it relates to how we deal with climate change. And so for us, we've had quite a lot of documents that we assigned to, and we said that we were going to try to implement, whether it be implementing against adaptation measures, whether it be implementing for mitigation measures, loss and damage. Two such prominent plans or documentation of that sort to guide us along with the Paris Agreement was that of the Nationally Determined Contributions, known as the acronym NDC, not the party though, and the National Adaptation Plan, which basically speaks to adapting. How do we adapt to the climate that is changing around us? And so we've been instrumental as a small island country in terms of promoting and ensuring that we meet the timeline and schedule to giving these documents and submitting these documents. But what we have fallen short on is actually putting together a schedule with that as to what is the timeline, what is the time frame, what type of projects really can help us to mitigate, what type of projects can help us to adapt to climate change that can really be trickled down not only from a technical, intellectual framework or policy document, but to actually get the grassroots people, the fishermen whose lives are at risk now with the marine sector being under threat due to pollution and all, sea rise, sea level rising and all of that. How do we get them on board? How do we get them to see that when we're going to these meetings, when we are exhausting ourselves on the negotiating table to talk for weeks, sometimes years, months, to get a treaty or a policy passed, that we're doing so to ensure that you can fish 5 years from now or 1 year from now, that in the event of a devastating climatic or natural event, a hurricane or flooding or stuff like that, that you can bounce back. So the onus was on us as a ministry. While we have satisfied these requirements from a technical and a policy level, we have not really been able to do projects that are filtered on the ground. And so that has been my focus, to get in the conversation open to all stakeholders, from as young as children in primary school, pre-primary school, to as old as adults, as seasoned climate ambassadors, seasoned negotiating ambassadors, seasoned persons that have been in the field for a very, very long time. And so you have seen some of the projects that we've been able to roll out. either one being a project that was already there, nothing has happened on it over a couple of years, and we have been able to ramp up pace. One such project like that was the solar luminary project for CARICOM PT Martinique that was devastated or destroyed almost in its entirety on the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Um, but nevertheless, we've been able to have lessons learned from that can guide us through when we say we want to have projects designed that can withstand a category 5 hurricane, for example, that it is not just about us putting resilience or building climate resilience as a buzzword or buzzwords in these policies, but it actually have to be represented and actually implemented within the infrastructure upgrades or new infrastructure that we want to put in. So we've had that project. We are currently in the phase now of revisiting such a project to see how best we can ramp up and go again. We've also had the opportunity as well through our partners with the World Bank and other small island developing states within OECS and CARICOM to have an energy efficiency project that would see us outfitting public buildings to make them much more energy efficient. We have a high electricity demand, and electricity cost is ridiculously high across the small island developing states across the region. So it's not like if Grenada is an outlier to what is the norm. So what we're doing as a group, as a block, we're trying to ensure that where possible, we can penetrate much more renewable, get much more renewables on stream. And where also possible, we are going to outfit to ensure that there is energy efficiency in the conversation as well. So we've had several projects. That's one of the projects that we will be rolling out as well. That project would be signed by the Minister for Finance next week in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think I'll be accompanying him to that signing as well. We've had another project with the Grenlec, who is leading that project as well with the MBIA solar PV project, the Grenada solar PV project. It's a solar PV and battery storage project that would see the placement of solar PV panels with battery storage on 3 sites at the Maurice Bishop International Airport area. That project is going to help us with grid modernization as well, and transmission and distribution lines. So we've seen quite a lot happening. Um, Behind the scenes, we still have to fulfill our mandate in terms of ensuring that our documentation and our regulatory framework is in place. Because outside of these what we would consider as utility scale projects or big projects, there are also small producers as well, small scale projects that are driven by the private sector or private individuals or up and coming companies. And so we have to ensure that they understand it is a whole of society, a whole of government approach, yes, but we also want them to partner with us because government cannot do it by ourselves. So we have to ensure that we give them the regulatory framework and the enabling environment so that small scale power producers can see the earnings and the returns on their investments. So we are doing a dual approach in terms of collaborating with other ministries and other stakeholders within the public sector, but we're also supporting the PURC as well in terms of the enabling environment from a regulatory legislative point of view as well.
Well, this is quite a lot, I would say, and you have only just touched just the tip of the iceberg. But I see coming up on the 9th and 10th of July. I mean, July is just turning out to be such a busy period for Grenada. It's unbelievable. From the cricket in the stadium to a workshop coming up 9th and 10th, and then you have the Caribbean conference taking place at the end of July. And of course, you have the launch of Carnival before that. And July is really a hectic period for Grenada. But tell us about the high-level officials and technical experts who are coming into Grenada for this workshop on the 9th and 10th. They represent the Global Water Partnership of the United Nations and SIDS, Small Island Developing States. What are going to be their objectives once they hold this workshop in Grenada?
So as you know, we have the Sustainable Development Goals, and I don't have my pin on today. Surprisingly, as I was rushing to ensure that the logistics is on par. But I would normally wear a pin with 17 different colors on it. It's a circle and there are different colors. Now that pin is the Sustainable Development Goals that we have all agreed under the United Nations framework that we're going to work towards achieving by a certain timeline. And so the agenda spans from ensuring that we can protect land, we can protect ecosystems and life at sea and on land. We can ensure that we have climate smart cities. We can ensure that we end poverty. We make education equal to everyone. That we also have gender equality in the conversation. That we give everybody an opportunity to have a good income. That we look at how we consume goods to ensuring that we do not leave a larger footprint than what we've met, and the likes go on. And so one of the key aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals also is how do we conserve water and how do we ensure that we have good clean water for our population and our generations to come. And the integrated water resource management is one such tool or one such framework whereby we gather stakeholders from as academia, technical experts, policy makers, and the likes to come together to agree into what would that look like in terms of how do we conserve and how do we manage that needed and necessary resource that is proven to be a problem for us in the region. So this workshop, it is the Integrated Water Resource Management Workshop for Caribbean SIDS in partnership with the Global Water Partnership Caribbean, because there's a larger Global Water Partnership grouping that would bring together high-level officials, as I mentioned, to basically, under the banner, to ensure that Caribbean commitments to sustainable water management, climate resilience, and the overall SDGs are still on the table and what's at stake. So it's a matter of us ensuring that we can do a stock take of where we are at, whether we have been making progress over the years, and to forge a way forward to leverage Sustainable Development Goal 6 for accelerated water investments in the Caribbean SID. So at the end is a 2-day oriented, action-oriented workshop. It will support, as I mentioned, 6 Caribbean small island developing states with a specific focus on country-led action and financing planning, identifying what are the priority actions and funding strategies needed. Whereas all of us as a grouping, we experience the same thing, but each individual country has different vulnerabilities and there are different stages and levels of the conversation. So it is a matter of us coming together, seeing what the differences are, seeing where there's cross-cutting themes, and to see how best we can forge a plan out that will include linking freshwater and marine governance, pollution control, and basically a monitoring framework for Sustainable Development Goal 6.
When it is said that you are discussing strategies relating to the strengthening of water resource management, when the grassroots man hears this, what do you think he is interpreting in his mind? And how would you like to break it down so that he really grasps what this workshop is going to be all about?
So basically, it is as simple as it is, and I'll give her an example. So currently, we have a situation on the Carnage, for example, whereby we have a lot of boats. The fishermen would dock there because there isn't any, as it stands now today, as it was many years ago. There's not enough adequate facilities for better docking and a better environment for these boats, these fishermen to dock when they're not fishing. And so, for example, you would see perhaps maybe a different color of the water now and then. You might see garbage in the water. You might see different things in the water of that sort. If our environment is polluted, whereby because of maybe plastics or human waste, we know what can happen. We know the fish stock will not be as large as it used to be before. We know that there might be other species that might be hard to find that can go extinct if we don't protect that. And so it is a matter of us coming and bridging the gap. So that's at sea. On land is the same thing. There were a project many years ago called the Ridge to Reef Project. In that, what happens up in the farmlands, how does that trickle down into our waterways, into our streams or rivers, and obviously end up in the ocean? So we have to put the barriers and buffers in place that can support and enhance and that can show the fishermen, that can show the farmers. If we do not protect what we have, some of us might be out of earning or having a livelihood. And that's basically what it means to have adequate strategy and to know what we're doing and how we're doing it, to understand what are good practices, what are bad practices, and what can ensure that if we do what is right or if we do what is necessary to protecting these water resources, that we can qualify for funding that can better help you to implement even much more climate resilient and much more climate smart measures and tools for your trade. So when I speak about strategies, that's what I mean basically, to ensuring that where we earn a living is protected. It is we are doing so in a sustainable manner, that we're not abusing the ecosystem, that we're not abusing the resource that we have.
Tell us a little bit more about the United Nations grant funding that countries like Grenada can access, and how successful have we been over the last 3 years in accessing such financing under the Green Climate Fund?
Okay, so we have quite a number of opportunities and avenues whereby we can get funding for that we have agreed to under the Paris Agreement that has created the establishment within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And so there has been quite a number of dedicated climate finance mechanisms, such as the Green Climate Fund, the Global Environment Facility as another one as well, that was created, I think, back in 2010. I think it was 2010 would have been the Conference of Parties, or COP 16 maybe. Don't quote me because it's a lot of data, but I think it's around that time. And it is basically funding that is contributed by developed countries and other private donors. It receives over 20 billion US dollars in pledges annually, and there are over 200 and more than that plus projects that is approved globally. So it basically uses grants, it uses concessional loans, equity, and guarantees to mobilize climate investments for countries like ours. And so we have been able to be an eligible country underneath that framework for access to GCF funding through regional and national projects, because we are a signatory to the larger United Nations Framework on Climate Change. So we've been able to have projects such as the Enhanced Direct Access Project, or the EDA project, which was a 4-component project, one of them being a component at Lauriston in Carriacou as well, for coastal rejuvenation and to build in our coastal area on the opposite side of the airport, for example. Of course, with the hurricane season last year and Beryl Passage, we've lost most of the mangrove replanting that we've done on the outskirts there. So we have been able to revisit that project, and we are now looking towards getting another project that can help us to get us back on track for that. Additional to that as well, we've been able to spread the Enhanced Direct project to not only deal directly with mangrove restoration, coastal restoration, or environmental matters, but we have also been able to merge it with education and to building climate resilience and ensuring that we have sound and robust infrastructure for education. And so underneath that project, we have held a sword turning ceremony sometime last month for the special education school in Grand Anse, whereby we would see some features being added to ensuring that the school is a climate resilient infrastructure infrastructure. It is also a hurricane shelter as well. And I was pleased to hear from one of the experts, I don't recall who now, that spoke to during Ivan when that building was built and it was there. That was the only standing building that was as a as a hurricane shelter. It was the only building that stood strong, and there were bare limited damage done to that building during the passage of Hurricane Ivan. And so what we want to do is that we recognize Hurricane Ivan 20 something years ago was a category 3 hurricane, and it did massive destructions. We are now seeing unprecedented hurricanes happening at times when we never thought we would have experienced that, and we're seeing it happen at even faster and higher speeds, going into category 4, category 5 hurricanes. And so we know for sure that most of our infrastructures on island now as public buildings, and so they are basically on the front line of experiencing almost complete devastation or a large portion of the devastation that happens. Our schools are on the front line. Our health facilities are on the front line. So what we're doing underneath that project, underneath that component, is to ensuring that that Grenada's special ed schools, school for the special education children, are even much more soundproof, that it can withstand another hurricane, it can withstand another flooding, or another coastal catastrophe. So that is an example of some of the projects that we've had underneath that program. We've also been looking at seeing how best we can add some other parts to the project now that it is winding down to its final few months of execution and implementation. We want to ensure that our official folks are not left behind. So we are now in the process of finalizing designs and coming together with a project concept to building a locker facility and cold storage facility for fishermen in my constituency, that is in the Old Road area. So we are in the process now of making the finalizing efforts for that, as well as a rehabilitation of the Palmis Dig, which was a man-made dam that was used during the time of slavery. Over the years, due to poor management and no management at all, the dam has been losing water through slippage due to broken walls and supporting infrastructure. So we want to ensure that we can bring back that kind of life. So when we speak about Grenada being a pure Grenada brand, or we speak about embedding sustainable tourism or ecotourism, that we're not offering our visitors and our tourists a tailored-down version of what is available in Europe or other parts of the world, but that we are showing them that we are protecting our marine ecosystem, we are protecting our environment, and you can help us do that, and you can come and enjoy that type of excursion and that type of exposure for small and developing states.
Great.
We've also participated as well to, there is a regional energy transition and coastal resilience initiative that has been backed by the GCF, whether through support for building on the human capacity set, so the capacity building efforts to ensure that our staffing, although quite small in numbers, but that they have access to what type of technology that is needed to bring us through the next phase of the energy transition. So we have been able to capitalize on our staff going out to experiencing trainings. We have been able to capitalize as well on how do we create projects that are bankable. How do we create projects that can have, not only one specific result or can satisfy one specific thing, but it can have a multiple advantages to different sectors. So some of our staff has been, and it's not only about those who have already been there, like the experts, but those who are also up and coming, our environmental officers that are at the first level of environmental officers grade. They had the opportunity as well to learn and to know what is required of them. So when we create these projects, it is not just putting top in mud or doing the bare minimum, but that we are actually setting the precedent that we are small, but we also have the tools and we have the capacity to build things that can really and truly be replicated in bigger countries.
Good. Well, I like when you say that we are small. Probably you just missed to say, but we Talawa.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
But your ministry, how many? I mean, for all that you have shared there, it sounds as though you have a large technical staff in the background just pumping stuff out.
Oh
Is that
no,
so?
oh no, oh no, not at all. Not at all. Our staffing outside of the administrative, secretarial, and the registry staffing, we perhaps probably have about 15,
Just
15
15.
technical, just 15. And the numbers have been able to move from to that in recent past, as in this year we've been able to get in the necessary clearance from DPA and the PSC to get in new staffing. So so
Well,
we have been doing a lot, and it goes to show that, in order to be effective, and Prime Minister always says so to us, that sometimes you don't necessarily need a large contingent of of people. You just need a small grouping that are effective.
yep.
You see what you need. We work with what we have until we can get to what we want. So that's what we've been able to do, and we've been able to leverage the support from our regional partners. We've been able to leverage the support with our organizations within under the CARICOM banner. So 5Cs, for example, have been able to give us tremendous support. We've been able to get support from the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, CCRE, to guiding us through concept writing, concept review, proposal reviews, legislative reviews, support for technical documentation and technical white paper. We've been able to get support as well too from climate analytics. They're actually doing supporting us with our nationally determined contributions document, because we do have to revise the one that was on table. So we're going into the NDC 3.0 now, and they've been giving us tremendous support for that as well. Preparation for the conference of parties. We have been getting tremendous support as well for negotiations, training new cadre of negotiators, because we've had some that have been there for a very long time. Dr. Spence and Mr. Charles, who've been there. They are seasoned. They are internationally, regionally, globally recognized, and they are appreciated. And so we want that when these people or persons transition out of that kind of service, that there isn't a gap. So I've been able to leverage the opportunity to getting access to these forums, and to creating partnerships that were non-existent, or partnerships that were there before but fell off on the train. So that's how we've been able to survive and we've been able to
Great.
stay on target.
Well, congratulations. Now, how do you manage this level of commitment for your ministry with your work in the constituency? Major
I
challenge.
it is a major challenge, and anybody who says that you can balance that, they one, either is telling a lie, or two, they've never been there, they never walked the road. Being a minister and being a member of parliament, it is two vast, time consuming professions, for lack of a better word. And so you use the right word in terms of asking me the question, how do I manage? Because it's a matter of time management. It's a matter of managing, knowing what is needed at a high level, and what is needed, what can be time consuming, or you can pass on other responsibilities to other staffing. And so I've been able to manage these past 3 years with my constituency and ministerial obligations, through having a strong team at the parliamentary office. Some of them I'm not saying that we're perfect. I'm not saying that we have not fall short in some areas, but they have been able to learn and grow with me in the process as well. And you can't leave the ground. There have been a preconceived notion, or a perception that has been created out of trying to score political mileage and political points, that I am not on the ground, and that I am always flying, and I'm always going places, and I'm always there on the international stage, and I'm not in my constituency. I live in my constituency. I live on the same street I have been living for the past 27 years. I've never changed. My home is an open door policy. People can call me, they can text me, they would get through it. The office is open even beyond opening hours. And I do walk my constituency. What I would agree with them and say is that over the last 2.5 years, Terry, I have not been promoting myself or giving myself the credit on the social media platforms as I should. And
Okay.
persons have that perception that because it is not promoted on social media, that is not happening, and that's not true. And the people in the constituency, the people in my constituency knows that for a fact that that is not true. We've been able to giving support, and each constituency, Terry, from a political standpoint, is different. So whereas just the MP showing up in just walking the constituency and talking, and they could snap pictures and post on Facebook, can work for some people, that cannot work for the people of St. John. The people of St. John chose to vote and support another representative because they believed that that person did not give them for a decade, they did not give them the right representation in that of having infrastructure upgrades as they should, for major road infrastructures, road connections. They've not had that support for building sectors such as the fishing sector, the marine sector. They have not had support for community development. And so when I see all of these things perpetuating, I laugh, because the people who are honest and who doesn't have a political bias, they will tell you, I am on the ground. I am accessible, maybe the most accessible MP there is currently. No. So, but I understand as well that the optics is very important. And so I have also taken a step back and looked on and see where I can post. And there are some things, Terry, that I fundamentally believe that if the right hand is doing it, the left hand doesn't have to know. And that's how I grew. And that would never change. Politics would not make me create an optic that I believe deep down should not be on social media. So there are still things that I do, such as community outreach, ensuring that persons who are in vulnerable situations are given the tools, the right tools to elevate, so that they don't have to constantly come back to us in a state of dependency, but we have given them the arsenal to grow and to start their small businesses. Some would want to share their story, others out of pride, they would not. And I would not force them to do it because I want to try and score political points. And they could call me naive, they could say whatever. It doesn't matter to me. So that's how I've been able to manage that. It takes a lot. It takes you away from your family. It takes you away from rest. You don't get to sleep, because I would have time to review proposal. I would have time to ensure that I can be up abreast of what is happening internationally during the wee hours of the morning. I would also have time to try and see how I could solve constituency problems, follow up with staff in other ministries that I depend on, because as a minister and as an MP, if you don't have a ministerial portfolio that is the majority of the necessity of the people, you ultimately have to depend on other ministers, other ministries to support you. And so they too have been able to give me that support. The Ministry of Infrastructure have been able to give me that support now with our projects. Some of them collapsed on us because they have been aging infrastructure. That doesn't mean that the representative is not working or has not been able to clamor for you, but you have to ensure that there is constant follow-up with the ministerial colleagues, that there is constant follow-up with the staff in those ministries, because they are doing a job. Maybe not what they're supposed to do, but they're functioning. And so we have to function. So I've been able to just stay consistent and just stay on the ground, just keep my head focused on what I said I would deliver, what I gave my commitment, and what I asked the people to vote for me for. I have been staying on track with that. If my report card is to be pulled and to see how I've been progressing, I would say 3 years with such a demanding ministry, 3 years with so many responsibilities, I've been doing a damn good job.
Well, even if you say so yourself.
Yes. And even if one person says so, outside of me.
Well, at this point, we'll take a short break. And when we come back, I'd like you to address the matter. I'm sure your ministry would have probably looked into it. That's the recent explosion that took place out in Telescope. Senator, the Honorable David Andrew, he had traversed the area, met with residents and so forth, and he should have, been on today, but because of other commitments, he is unable to do so. So you share with us whether if your ministry was involved in any aspect of that unfortunate incident which occurred in Telescope. So back with you in a moment.
Calling the CARICOM community, assembling Global Africa, the fourth edition of the Afri-Caribbean Trade Investment Forum. Active 2025 is coming to St. George, Grenada, this 28th to 29th July. Join government and business leaders, investors, and trade and finance institutions to explore the theme, resilience and transformation. Enhancing Africa-Caribbean economic cooperation in an era of global uncertainty. Be there as we stand together to strengthen our commercial ties, to promote shared trade and investment opportunities, and unlock prosperity for Africa, the Caribbean, and the wider diaspora. The fourth Afri-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. Reserve your place now at active2025.com.
Summer is here, and so is the search for Grenada's next big talent. The Grenada Office of Creative Affairs presents Sing Grenada, a youth-powered program spotlighting the next generation of musical talent.
We're looking for young stars from every corner of the island. Whether you sing, play an instrument, or create beats, this is your moment.
Show Grenada and the world what you've got. Submit a 1-minute video to singgrenada@gmail.com or click the link in our bio to register. Please state your name, your age, what school you attend, and you must be 19 and under to apply.
Your voice, your sound, your story. This is Sing Grenada, where talent takes center stage.
Climate change doesn't adhere to a specific time frame. It fuels multiple hazard events, from hurricanes and flooding to heat waves and landslides. These events may occur back-to-back or simultaneously, creating compounded risks for our communities. Preparedness must go beyond one season or one threat. Preparedness must be year-round and multi-hazard focused. Preparedness is resilience. Preparedness begins with you.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA.
Welcome back to the NDC Heartbeat podcast for today's Sunday. And online with me is the Minister responsible for climate resilience, the environment and renewable energy, the Honorable Karine James. Welcome back to the Heartbeat. And Honorable James, before you left, I posed a question about the incident which occurred recently out in Telescope. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I think it's a quite unfortunate and scary occurrence that occurred there, and I am so grateful, and all praises and thanks needs to be given to God that no life was lost, and that persons who would have experienced injuries, that they are well. I have seen Gravel and Concrete also did an outreach to the families. I've seen my colleagues as well, ministers and caretakers in the area, visiting the families and just showing solidarity with them. I've also seen the opposition, giving support where they can to the families as well too. And it must be commended that all of Grenada has been behind those that are affected. And thank God that nothing worse had happened. From my end, I don't have the authority, and I would not try to speak in terms of what happened and what didn't happen. But from the Ministry of Environment and being the minister there, I can confirm that Grenada is fully committed to the international humanitarian this eminent norms, I think it is called. We have acceded to the convention on, I think it was cluster munitions since 2011 around there, and we are bound by that protocol as well to how we deal with explosives and how we ensure that we destroy for lack of a better word, all unexploded ordnance, as well as to educate the public on the dangers of these things. And so following the recent occurrence that happened, I believe that as a ministry, we have to ensure that we partner with our committee that is put in place. There is a whole of a government committee that is put in place to ensuring that we have or we initiate environmental risk assessment for sites that handles explosive materials. That is something that our ministry has to ensure that other statutory bodies as well as other ministries are in accordance with the protocol and underneath the convention. So we will continue to do that advocacy. I think what is needed as well too is also perhaps maybe the launch of a national public risk education campaign for persons who live around areas that are industrial areas or industrial sites, so that they know how to operate in the event of something of that sort happening again, or that they know what risks are associated with living in areas of that nature. So I think from a commentary standpoint in terms of what has happened, we as a ministry are in support of the committee. We are in support of the government and the statutory bodies to ensuring that the environmental requirements are met. If the environmental risk assessment has not been done as yet, and I have not gotten a briefing from my head of environment division to tell me whether or not we have requested formally that that information to be shared or to actually happen. So I think once we have that, you'll be able to hear a better, stronger position from our ministry once we are able to check out all the balances. But for now, I think that there definitely needs to be much more public awareness. There needs to be more ongoing training of our staffing. It is very important. Training should not only come when there is an opportunity handed down from a top-down approach that a certain convention has to do it every 10 years or every 15 years, every 20 years. But once you are dealing with explosive materials and the likes of that kind that can have a negative impact or an impact in general on public health and safety, we definitely have to ensure that our team, our workers, our employees are well trained and know how to deal with those things, so that when an unfortunate incident happens, that they are already in training and they know how to operate. So I'll just leave it for that at that point. But as I mentioned, from the psychosocial aspect of it, we have been given support. My colleagues have been there supporting the residents there. The gravel and concrete have been given support for things that were lost, material things that were lost, and they've been giving other support elsewhere. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to come together, for us to unite, not try to score political points, but to see the bigger picture, that there needs to be continued public awareness. There needs to be continued mechanisms that are in place. They are in place legislatively, but in practice, we don't necessarily always follow through with the environmental risk assessment. We don't always follow through that we have the safeguards in place, even if we are bound by law to do so. So it's a learning opportunity, and it's also an opportunity for us as well to work together.
Great, wonderful indeed. And I would imagine that your officer responsible for environmental matters would probably meet at some point in time with the residents of Telescope, because they ain't going to change their residence. They're living by a site that from time to time there's going to be explosion taking place in order to harness resources and so forth for building of roads and other such like infrastructure. So they need to be engaged. So I'm hopeful.
But we're trying not for no explosions to happen again. And
well, indeed, but it will happen because big stones and so forth need to be cracked up, but managed responsibly. To be managed in a responsible manner. Yeah. Yes. And that the residents be informed well ahead of time that this is going to be happening tonight or this morning, etc. So mentally they could be prepared for the noise and whatever else. But while on the same Telescope area, I noticed over the years there have been constant erosion taking place there by the sea. Anything to report on that situation out there?
Oh, yes, indeed. The telescope area has had a series, a number of years of experiences with sand mining being
Yeah.
the culprit. And so, there is a flawed belief by our constituents that we can take sand from the beach, and even if we can't take all because the sea would bring up more sand. And we have seen in that particular area that that is not the case. If you abuse the resources that you have, you will eventually ruin your ecosystem. You will eventually have no land. The sea doesn't have no boundaries.
It's
We might
coming.
we might have boundaries in terms of our land, allocated lands and so, but the sea has no boundaries. And so if we misuse and if we destroy it by man-made activities and human activities such as sand mining, it's not going to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
We're not
Yeah.
going to have any left. And so over the years, the Ministry of Environment, sorry, has had a robust sand mining campaign, ensuring that persons understand what are the negative impacts and the deadly impacts of sand mining. And I think the residents there have seen it beyond their eyes. I remember when I was a student, in TAMCC, I did geography, and for the Cape exams, we did an assessment of the telescope area there, and there were residents there that was able to show us pictures when they were younger, many years ago, where far back out there used to be a playing field. And
Wow.
you're looking at it now. You're looking at it now. You was like, well, where? Which part? And I was like, yeah, look at that. There are
Mm-hmm.
instances as well to where we see coconut trees out in the water, in the water, like deep in the water, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet out in the water. And it's just that's where the land used to be before.
Wow. Amazing.
So the people are seeing it, but I think what we have not been able to do is to link it to some of the things that we have created ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have created
Yep, that's
climate
man-made.
change.
Yep.
It is man-made. We have done so. And persons would say, that's just nature doing its thing. Obviously, our planet will not stay the same. It has changed and it will continue to change. But that is true, but not at the magnitude in which we are seeing it now.
Mm-hmm.
Sea level is increasing. It is getting hotter.
Yep.
I don't know if you're feeling it's getting hotter. And so there must be something outside of just the natural cycle and evolution of life and the planet. Something must have happened or changed that has caused these things to change so drastically in such a short space of time. And
Mm-hmm.
so we continue as a ministry to speak to the constituents, speak to the residents, speak to our citizens to understand and to have that correlation. If you don't protect the environment, it will not and it cannot protect you. So the sand mining thing cannot work. It is a myth when you believe that the sea would bring back. The sea can never bring back as much sand as the cycle it takes for sand to be replenished on its
Yes.
natural course is not the same time frame as us as humans removing it to go and build. And I think too, also what needs to happen, perhaps maybe it's in our building codes that we've been able to change as well through original project with the OECS as well. The physical planning unit maybe need to ensure that they tell these people that this sand that we're using to build is not even good sand.
Yep.
It
Too
is
much
not
salt
even
in it.
good sand to be using for construction. So, people always look for a cheaper way out to do things, and in the end, it costs us more.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, that has been the situation with the telescope area, and we continue to lobby. I think later on this year or maybe next year, we would be able to have an allocation and to ramp up our public awareness campaign because outside of it happening now or there being a regional project, we have not been able to constantly bombard them with the information of
Mm-hmm.
the public awareness and the public campaign. So that is something that we're also looking into as well.
Great. Well, in the meantime, there's been a major shift in the land, I believe, out in Cloget. If you look on your screen, you would see that there's been, a major problem there, landslip, and a large section of the road has been totally damaged. Do you have anything you wish to share on that?
Oh, yes, just to say that in addition to the many other neglected infrastructures, large infrastructures that we've had over the past few years, that nothing has been done on these infrastructures, they eventually outlive their usefulness and they have crumbled, right? Another such road being the Mondo Road for the residents in Concord, that's on the southern part of the constituency, as well as Mongo Road. So we've been able to tackle them, and there are large projects. There are over 500,000 EC dollars, some of them bordering close to millions of EC dollars to rectify and to rehabilitate, and we're taking them one at a time. So we have been able to address the situation with closure that was a failed or an old culvert system that was there, and the road was eventually eroded and has started eroding drastically before the intervention. And so we've been able to get the approval for works to commence through the Ministry of Infrastructure on that project. And since we have started on the project, for those persons who know closure is a wet area. Forgive me if I don't use the technical terminology, but there's always water. The soil is always moist up there. There are natural streams that flows all over. Some are at the surface, others are on the ground. And it's only when you realize or you do the investigation or works commence, you would see that, okay, there is a water source, there is some live channel of water running through. And so the contractors that have been awarded that contract for that project has been faced with that challenge from day one. From day one, in terms of trying to locate where the channels of water is running through, and they've been able to expedite work and to work successfully over the last few months. Unfortunately, at around Corpus Christi time, that was the holiday sometime in June, they realized that what they would have already backfilled and started laying the foundational works for to building the retaining wall, there is a large, massive body of water that was flowing through. And then they realized that it was not a natural stream. It was not a stream that was flowing. It was actually a burst pipe that they were not able to identify before the project commenced. So they would have mapped out all of the Nawasa piping before. And that one, however, was not one that any of the staffing from the Nawasa end knew existed, and that of the contractors and his team not knowing that existed as well. So they've been having to, since then, they've been having to try to deal with that subsurface water ingress. And they have dealt with it successfully during that time up until now, coupled with the rain, coupled with having even much more water. When they're thinking that they have it under control, they do not have it under control. So the land continues to slip there, and eventually the first half of the road that was already built, that was stable and strong, and then if you go back to my Facebook profile, you would see the pictures there that we were literally walking on that area. Vehicles were passing on that area. In my non-professional or expert opinion, I believe that that road should have been closed off permanently since work has commenced, because if you're building on something that is quote unquote slightly unstable or unstable altogether due to having water issues, you cannot have extra weight passing on the road that you're trying to build, because you have to get it under manageable condition. So I believe that road should have been closed off altogether from the inception, to allow the team to expedite work one and move fast. That is something to projects of that nature. You have to move fast.
Yep.
You must. You can't. It's not an 8 to 4. It is not. It's not a Monday to Friday work. You have to move fast with these things.
Absolutely.
There are
Minister,
things that are
just give me half a second. Let me say goodbye to our listeners, our
sure.
partners on radio who are listening, and to invite them to join us online, either on the NDC Facebook page or on YouTube. So thank you. Please continue.
Yes, so you have to work fast, and you have to ensure that the barriers and the buffers are there. They have been given the support, I would say, from NAWASA. They have been on point. The Ministry of Infrastructure team have been there giving the support and necessary support for them to ensure that work can be expedited and they can have the buffers and the barriers in place to ensure that this project is successfully completed. I think as of yesterday, there will have been a temporary closure of the road now, so the traffic has now been diverted into another back road for persons to come down. But it just goes to show the bigger picture that, when you elect representatives, you have to ensure that they are aware that if you do not fix key infrastructure, road networks, and road access, these are the results of what neglect can look like. It can cause us to be very close, 10 minutes, 5 minutes away from each other, but it can take us hours to get to one point A to point B because of failed
Road
ideas,
networks.
because of failed networks or failed plans to actually supporting and ensuring that we build the necessary infrastructure that is needed for the overall development and enhancement of the areas. And so it's unfortunate now that we are at this juncture, but we are dealing with it, and we are hoping to have a successful implementation and rollout of that new road project for the people of Closure. They deserve better, and they are getting better underneath my representation.
Well, great. Wonderful indeed. Well, time has certainly caught up with us, but it looks as though we can go for another hour. What do you say?
Oh my gosh, you talk about management. You talk about management. So, no.
I'm only kidding you. I mean, the office crew here in the studio are saying, "What you saying? Another hour?"
See, my parents would tell you, ever since I was able to speak and walk, I have been an avid West Indies supporter, West Indies enthusiast. So there is no way that I missed it yesterday because I had other responsibilities. But Terry,
Exactly. Not today. Amen. Well, let me thank you. Let me thank you so much for being part of the Heartbeat today. You've been a great guest. You've been very focused and very deliberate. So I want to thank you for all the information that you have shared, and I'm hopeful that the public is enlightened with all the data that you have given to them. So let me invite you to make your closing remarks at this point in time.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be on Heartbeat again. It's always a pleasure to engage with the media, and it's always a pleasure to engage with our supporters who have been giving us tremendous support over the past 3 years. It has not been an easy task or easy feat for us, but we have given our commitment and we have stayed the course. And if any of us report cards is full, you would see that we have stayed the course and we are doing what we said that we were going to do. So I just urge our supporters, whether it be here or in the diaspora, I urge them to just be with us, keep us in your prayers. We need it. We are seeing some scary things happening. So much misinformation is being spread. So much of malice and lies. Just to score political point. We're not going to get ourselves tied up in that. Certainly, I'm not going to get myself tied up in that. I am staying focused to what I said I was going to do. I am staying focused to the brand. I'm staying focused to good governance, accountability, and transparency. And so I want you to hold us in high regards. I want you to continue to support us and to just be there for us. Keep praying for us. If we fall short somewhere, you think we can do better, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and say, Karen or anybody else, I think that you need to do something different, or I think that you need to do something else. I didn't like how that was come across. I think you can do X, Y, and Z different. We are here to learn. We are here to grow together, and we're here to make Grenada a better place. I want to say thank you also to my constituents in my constituency, St. John, for their tremendous support. St. John is not an easy place. It is not an easy place. It is a
Very
dynamic
special.
place. It is very special indeed, very talented, very special, very unique. But we have been able to work very seamlessly over the past 3 years, and we cannot get distracted. We cannot get sidetracked. We have to stay the course. You have to stay there with me, right there with your MP. She's right there with you. You have to be right there with her. So I want to thank them for the 3 years that they have given to me. They have allowed me to see. I want to thank them for the relationships that we've been able to forge. Of course, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for us to do more. Persons always want us as politicians to always do more, do more, do more. But I cannot give from an empty cup. So I too will need your support to buffer. I too will need your support as well to carry me through, for me to ensure that I can reach every need or most need of my constituency. I want to thank Grenada for continuing to give the props where it's due and to also hold us accountable where we should do and we can do better. So thank you for the support for the 3 years. We still have a long way to go. Stay focused, stay informed, stay away from the misinformation. Don't get distracted by what's happening. We have a mission, and we are staying on that course. So I want to wish everybody, a very good week, a productive week. May it be one that is safe. I pray God's guidance and God's continued blessings upon everyone, to have an enjoyable and productive week. May the Sunday be as restful for you so that you can go into your respective places of work or employment with a re-energized and more customer-oriented aura, so that everyone can, benefit from it. Grenada is moving forward. Grenada has been moving forward since 2022, and there is no stopping us now. We are a team that is united. We are a team, we love each other. Maybe we love each other too much, too much sometimes, but there is love in the house. And there is growth and opportunities for everybody. So stay away from the misinformation, stay on track, keep focused, keep us in your prayers.
Well, thank you so very much indeed. You have been absolutely dynamic today. I've never seen you in such energy and fulfillment, and you have been
Things
terrific.
are happening in St. John's.
You have been terrific indeed. Member of Parliament for St. John, the Honourable Kireen James, and Minister responsible for climate resilience, environment and renewable energy. Thank you for joining the Heartbeat today, and do have a great week and enjoy the cricket.
Yes, thank you. Bye,
and
everyone.
to all of you who joined the Heartbeat today, I want to just thank you so very much for being part of this Sunday afternoon's program, and join us again next Sunday when we'll have other equally interesting programs to share with you. Have a great Sunday afternoon. Goodbye. Okay.